On the third anniversary of our relationship, I had planned to propose to my girlfriend, Aurora. She turned down my surprise for a business dinner. I had just sent her the restaurant's address when, not 20 seconds later, a string of unavoidable appointments filled my screen. We worked at the same company, managing different sectors. Her world was a revolving door of people, a world I rarely had the chance to enter. Then, her call came. Honey, time is tight, and the project is critical. Making money comes first. I could hear the clinking of glasses in the background, the familiar sound of her schmoozing. You're working so hard, I said, trying to keep the disappointment from my voice. I just wanted you to relax. She excused herself from the table, finding a quiet corner to speak with me. Making money is how I relax. Someone in the background cracked a joke, and she laughed, chiding them playfully. I waited patiently. Come on, she said, her voice softening slightly. We're like an old married couple. We're past the whole song and dance of fancy dinners. The line went dead. I stood there, alone, turning her words over in my mind. An old married couple. Like any other couple, we ate together, worked together, argued, and made up, weaving our lives into the fabric of the everyday. 3 whole years of it. To be honest, even though she had canceled on me yet again, that one casual phrase cleared the clouds from my mood. She rarely spoke of love, but it seemed that in the mind of the formidable Ms. Aurora Sue, a woman who could make or break fortunes in this city, we had already transcended the simple label of boyfriend and girlfriend. She saw me as her husband, and I had no reason to object. Standing at the jewelry counter, I immediately returned the 1-carat diamond to the saleswoman. This one is too small, I said, a newfound confidence in my voice. It doesn't quite suit my wife. Let's go with the 3-carat. My income was a fraction of hers, and buying a ring so far beyond my means was a strain, to say the least. But I didn't care. When it came to Aurora, I had always been willing to bet everything. I slipped the velvet box into my pocket and walked out of the mall. Across the street, the massive LED screen on the facade of a skyscraper flickered to life. And there was Aurora's face, captivating as ever. As I stared, my phone rang. Thinking it was her, calling to change her mind, I answered quickly. Aurora, it's your mother. What's wrong with Aurora? I can't get through to her. Do you need something? No. I just received the sample of the ginseng face cream. I love it, and I wanted to thank her. She's working late again, I suppose. Julian, my mother's voice grew serious. Since your father passed, our family's ginseng business has been entirely dependent on the Sue family. And a girl as thoughtful and meticulous as her. You need to hold on to her. Don't worry, Mom. I know. I hung up and looked back at the screen. Aurora was in the middle of a presentation, confidently discussing our joint creation, the very face cream my mother had just mentioned. It was a product we both believed would revolutionize the industry, a fusion of traditional herbal medicine and modern cosmetics. Standing in the middle of the bustling crowd, I raised the ring towards the screen, framing Aurora's face within its perfect circle of light. On the screen, she smiled, as if directly at me. Our Mr. Lin has worked incredibly hard. I remember a time he took me into the mountains for a whole month, braving the elements just to cultivate a single ginseng root. I can solemnly promise all of you that every jar of our cream contains the nutrients of 100 precious ginseng roots. I smiled with her, filled with the anticipation of building a life with this woman, of drawing nourishment from the simple, shared routines of marriage. Aurora, I typed into my phone. After the cream launches, let's get married. I sent the message, my heart pounding as I awaited her response. But the message sank like a stone in the ocean. Silence. Night fell, and the wind howled around me. It felt as if Aurora had pinned me to this very spot, forcing me to do nothing but look up at her. Finally, the screen went dark. Her show was over. I pulled my coat tighter and, catching the tail end of a green light, started walking towards her office. But as I stepped off the curb, a flashy sports car accelerated wildly, its front bumper catching the hem of my coat and sending me sprawling to the ground. The fall left me with only minor scrapes, but the impact must have triggered a hallucination, because I saw Aurora sitting in the passenger seat, wrapped in the arms of the young man behind the wheel. As fragments of asphalt embedded themselves in my palm, I smelled a familiar, sweet fragrance. Guerlain's Rose, her absolute favorite. She used to go through bottles of it. After being with her for so long, the scent had saturated my own senses to the point where I mistook it for her natural scent. But ever since our ginseng cream project began, She had exclusively smelled of the unique, mysterious aroma of medicinal herbs. She must have remembered it was our anniversary and worn the perfume just for today. The combination of sight and smell confirmed it beyond any doubt. That was her. "Hey man, you okay?" The scissor door of the sports car swung up, and a young man in sunglasses and head-to-toe designer logos stepped out. "I'm fine," I said, my voice strained. "But you're stepping on something of mine." The ring box had flown from my hand when I fell. It now lay forlornly under the sole of his trendy sneaker. "Oh, my bad," he said, picking it up. "But hey, our family's in the jewelry business. We've got a massive private mine in South Africa. I can get you a much better one." He handed the box back to me, but I wasn't listening. My eyes were locked on Aurora through the windshield. For a fleeting moment, our gazes met. She had clearly dressed up for the occasion. A wild, leopard print fur coat was thrown over a silk slip dress, its neckline plunging to a precise 0.2 inches below her collarbone. Like her perfume, the look was fiery and unrestrained. I saw a flicker of unease in her expression before she quickly looked away, her eyes landing on the diamond ring in my hand. Before I could speak, she was out of the car, her high heels clicking rapidly on the pavement as she rushed towards me. She threw her arms around me, her red lips pressing against my cheek. "I will," she whispered urgently. "Julian Lin, let's get married." But the rich kid wasn't having it. He strode over and grabbed her arm. "Then what am I?" Aurora just hugged me tighter. "Leo, we'll talk about this tomorrow." A crowd was beginning to gather, their murmurs creating a backdrop of speculation. I didn't need to hear the words to know what kind of sordid stories they were weaving. I hated being the center of attention, and I had no desire to prolong the drama. I pulled away from them and started to walk, but Aurora stopped me again. She pulled me aside, an exasperated look on her face. She pointed a finger at her temple and whispered, "He's not all there. He's like one of those foolish stags, you know? The kind you find in the mountains up north. You shine a flashlight on them, and they just freeze." I let out a cold laugh. I've never seen a foolish stag drive a car with scissor doors. A gust of wind whipped through the street, sending Aurora's dress swirling around her. I saw that her skirt was covered in large, blooming roses. But the violent motion of the fabric seemed to blow away the facade, pushing me towards the truth. I couldn't hold it in any longer. "Aurora," I yelled, right there on the street. "Just smell yourself." She refused to let go of my arm, her eyes locked on mine. She pulled open a corner of her fur coat and took a deep breath. I watched her expression shift from confusion to shock. In the thin night air, the truth was undeniable, hanging between us. Beneath the heavy, sweet scent of roses clinging to the outer layer of her clothes, a foreign fragrance of oud wood on the silk beneath was fading to its final, subtle notes, a hint of tea, detectable only at the closest of quarters. I glanced over at the foolish stag, a man roughly my own size. The crowd was a noisy blur, but in that moment, as he stared at the sliver of Aurora's back exposed by her coat, his eyes held a look of pure, unadulterated hunger. I couldn't fathom how this boy, this stag she dismissed so easily, had managed to leave such a deep and lingering mark upon her. Before I could even begin to process the disaster of our anniversary, the scent of perfume was replaced by the sharp, sterile smell of disinfectant. I stood in the hospital corridor late at night, clutching a critical condition notice, my body trembling uncontrollably. Aurora stayed by my side. I glanced down and saw that the roses on her dress, now doused in the harsh reality of the hospital, had begun to wilt. She took my trembling hand. "Julian, my mother's specialist is on the way. Your mom will be okay, don't worry." The shock had left me drained. I didn't even have the strength to pull my hand away. "Thank her for me." She moved closer, hugging me and planting a soft kiss on my cheek. "We're family. There's no need for thanks." The Lin family ginseng farm was old, passed down through 4 generations to my father. That evening, my mother had been doing her routine inspection of the warehouse when she accidentally bumped a shelf. A catastrophic domino effect followed, and several heavy shelves laden with ginseng collapsed on top of her. She had 3 shattered ribs, one of which was completely severed. Worse, the broken bone had pierced her lung, causing a secondary, life-threatening injury. The news had sent me into a blind panic. Thankfully, Aurora had remained calm, immediately calling her mother. Mrs. Su had connections. Within hours, a helicopter had airlifted my mother to the best hospital in the city for emergency surgery. The doors to the operating room swung open, and Mrs. Su, pulling off her surgical mask, walked towards me. Julian, your mother's condition has stabilized for now. I rushed to her. Auntie, thank you so much. My words seemed to confuse her. She frowned. What did you call me? My mind was a fog. I was completely at a loss for words. Seeing my silence, she gestured towards Aurora's hand. The 3-carat diamond glittered in the dim hallway light. This is wonderful news. Aurora told me everything. Looking at the ring now only reminded me of it being crushed under the sole of that foolish stag's shoe. The phantom scent of tea mixed with the hospital's antiseptic smell, churning my stomach. Auntie, I said, my voice weary. I love Aurora, and I truly want to marry her. But no one could have predicted my mother's injury. My meaning was clear, but Mrs. Sue would not be deterred. The cream is about to launch, and you two are getting married. It's a double blessing. I'm sure your mother would be happy to see it. I asked her inside just now. Her biggest worry is the two of you. With that, she gave Aurora a subtle push from behind. Unsteady in her high heels, Aurora stumbled forward, falling directly into my arms. Mrs. Sue stepped forward, took Aurora's hand, then mine, and pressed them together. Julian, she said, her voice heavy with meaning, I'll say it again. If you two ever break up, I won't recognize Aurora as my daughter. I'll only recognize you. Her words transported me back to another chilly spring day. Aurora had been out all night, and Mrs. Sue had dragged me along to find her, finally cornering her at a rowdy mahjong table. Aurora, her hair held up with a jade pin, her long skirt hiked up to her thighs, a cigarette dangling from her lips, was laughing and dealing chips with a table full of strange men. I stood at the door, staring at the dozens of missed calls on my phone, unable to bring myself to step into that smoke-filled room. Mrs. Sue had stepped in for me. She walked up to the table, and instead of yelling, she pointed at Aurora and asked quietly, Aurora, if Julian can't take this anymore and breaks up with you, can we legally assign the duty of caring for me in my old age to him? It won't be for free. When I'm gone, the company and all my assets will be his. Aurora had waved the smoke away from her face and stood up in disbelief. Mom, look at me. I'm your daughter. Mrs. Sue had scoffed. You keep staying out all night like this, and I'll start treating Julian as my own son. For years, Mrs. Sue had been incredibly kind to me, and I was genuinely grateful. But now, with my mother's life hanging in the balance, I couldn't give her the answer she wanted. I just watched as the sky outside began to lighten, the morning breeze rustling the new spring leaves. My heart swayed with them, unsettled and uncertain. After the encounter with the foolish stag, I was no longer sure. Aurora was a beautiful, wild blossom, but would she ever truly settle down for me? As the dawn finally broke, I stared at the ring on Aurora's finger, and the memories came flooding back. 3 years ago, my father's sudden death from an illness had forced me to abandon my career in traditional medicine and return home to manage the family ginseng farm. The business was failing, and the mountains of unsold ginseng in the warehouse felt like a physical weight on my chest, crushing the air from my lungs. But at my lowest point, Aurora appeared. It was spring, and the ginseng was in bloom. She stood in the fields, her skirt dancing with the delicate white flowers, and her presence created a gentle ripple in the quiet pool of my heart. Mr. Lin, hello, she had said. I recently acquired a cosmetics company, and I'm very interested in their herbal line. The problem is finding a reliable supplier for raw materials. I asked around, and everyone recommended your farm. She stayed for weeks to study the properties of ginseng, becoming my constant companion. I can't pinpoint the exact moment I fell for her. Perhaps it was when she swapped her elegant dresses for my oversized work clothes and rubber boots. She'd braid her long hair and, picking up a fallen ginseng flower, asked me to place it behind her ear. In that moment, she was more beautiful than any flower. Or perhaps it was in the autumn, when, under the guise of research, she bought our entire backstock of ginseng at the highest market price. That night, my mother cooked a feast to celebrate. Aurora, flushed from a few glasses of ginseng wine, stumbled over to my mother and slurred, Auntie, your ginseng wine is so sweet. If I stayed and became your daughter-in-law, would I get to drink it for the rest of my life? My mother was so startled she dropped a plate, but I saw a flicker of hope in her eyes. Or maybe it was the night before she was due to leave. A torrential downpour triggered a mudslide that threatened the farm. In the split second before a retaining wall collapsed, she reacted instantly, shoving me out of the way into an open clearing. We survived, laughing and holding each other in a tight embrace. Our hearts pounded in unison, separated only by the thin layer of her cashmere coat. The air grew thin as she stood on her toes and kissed me. Later, Aurora had a scriptwriter turn our story into a romantic tale. She told everyone I was a ginseng spirit living in the mountains, and her kiss had transformed me into a man. The story became the foundation of our brand's identity. From then on, we had multiple roles. I was the sole supplier for the ginseng cream, and I was her lover. The day we signed the contract was even more surreal. The ceremony for this massive, long-term agreement took place in bed. As the morning light streamed in, Aurora, wearing only a silk nightgown, leaned over my chest and carefully signed her name. The sharp tip of the pen felt like it was carving her name directly onto my heart, leaving a permanent mark. "You have to remember me, Mr. Lin," she'd said, her voice a strange mix of childlike innocence and fierce determination. Every part of her, down to a single strand of hair, was exactly what I loved. "Of course," I had replied. "It's a pleasure doing business with you." At the press conference for the cream's launch, Aurora left nothing to chance. She even had 3 different suits for me to choose from, bringing them personally to the hospital. I looked at my mother, her eyes still closed on the hospital bed, and hesitated. "Aurora," I said finally, "Mom just had her first surgery. I don't feel right leaving her. Can I skip the press conference?" She was selecting a tie for me. She flicked it playfully against my chest. "Mr. Lin, I've spent 3 years preparing this daughter for her wedding day, and now you're telling me her own father isn't going to walk her down the aisle? What are you thinking?" "You see her," I pleaded. "She hasn't woken up yet. How can I possibly focus on work?" Her expression hardened. "Our story is printed on the promotional material for every single jar of this cream. If you don't show up, what do you think those vultures in the press will write? That we're having problems? Our product will become a laughingstock." The cream's appeal is based on the centuries of quality behind Lin family ginseng, not on a fairy tale, I argued. "It's just a press conference. It's not that serious." I turned to find the doctor, but she grabbed my arm, her grip surprisingly strong. She didn't speak. She just kissed me, her lips tracing my jawline, a careful, calculated conquest of my senses. It had been so long, too long, since we had been this close. When she pulled away, her eyes were bright. "Julian," she whispered, "after the cream launches, let's get married, okay?" Before I could answer, a faint cough came from the hospital bed. My mother's eyes were open, bloodshot, and filled with tears. "Julian," she rasped, "your father's dying wish was to see you settled. Promise her. Promise Aurora now." Caught between them, the word escaped my lips before I could stop it. "All right." As the stage lights caught the diamonds on Aurora's collarbone, that same faint, secret scent of tea began to permeate the grand hall. The foolish stag had undergone a transformation. The designer logos were gone, replaced by a tailored, subtly patterned suit. He walked towards me from the end of the corridor, his expression open and confident. "The conference starts in a bit, Mr. Lin. Care for a cup of tea?" My mind flashed with images, but the one that stuck was of a wolf, eyes fixed on its prey. This was no foolish stag. "Is there something you need?" I asked. "Just a chat." I had seen his name, Leo Meng, on the guest list. It seemed that while I had been at my mother's bedside, he had become a shareholder in our project. His gaze drifted across the room to where Aurora was greeting reporters. "Aurora looks beautiful today." "Yes," I replied, my voice sharp. "She'll be even more beautiful on our wedding day." He ignored my jab. "Mr. Lin," he asked casually, "do you have enough money for a wedding?" "What do you mean?" "Aurora's private investment firm just took a massive hit in the market. Her capital chain is about to snap. Why else do you think she would sell me a stake in the face cream project?" He pushed a cup of tea towards me. "Relax, Mr. Lin. Money is just an object. Tea is best when it's allowed to steep. And a man is best when he's learned to let things go." Leo's words sent my mind reeling. A man and a woman, alone late at night under the guise of business. What could they be doing? Joking, drinking, maybe a few hands of mahjong to pass the time? And then, when the night grew cold, would they seek warmth in each other's arms, letting passion and desire run wild? I couldn't let my thoughts go there. It was like that smoke-filled room all over again. I couldn't bring myself to enter. "Mr. Meng," I said, standing up, "thank you for your help with the company. But Aurora is my fiancée." At that moment, all the lights focused on Aurora as she took the stage. "This cream," she began, her voice resonating through the hall, "was inspired entirely by our Mr. Lin. All of you here today are lucky enough to witness not only a revolution in herbal skincare, but also the love between Mr. Lin and myself. A love as intertwined as the roots of the ginseng he cultivates. As she finished, she nonchalantly brushed a stray hair from her face, and I heard a collective gasp from the audience. The 3-carat diamond on her ring finger flashed. Under the lights, she turned and gave me a sly, knowing smile. I rushed to the stage and embraced her. Her kiss landed on my earlobe, a familiar, private signal between us. It was my turn to speak. I expanded on her story, taking the audience back to the ginseng farm, to my despair, and to the fairy who had descended from the heavens to save me. I hadn't been scheduled to speak, but I had to. It was a matter of a man's pride. After the press conference, at the reception, a slightly drunk Leo approached Aurora. He pointed to his earlobe. "Aurora, I had a part in this launch too. You can't play favorites." Aurora was flushed and excited, clearly having had a bit to drink herself. "Thank you, Leo. We'll talk more another day." She gave him a playful, soft push, but the gesture seemed less like a dismissal and more like an invitation, and he became more insistent, slinging an arm around her. "Come on, Aurora. I spent so much money for you. Don't I at least deserve a toast?" I was about to step in when a pair of hands pushed me from behind, placing me directly between them. It was Mrs. Su. "Mr. Meng," she said, her voice firm. "Thank you for your help. But you've had too much to drink, and so has Aurora. It's time for you both to go home." She then turned, grabbed Aurora's coat, and practically dragged her to my car, muttering under her breath, "Shameless girl, have a few drinks and you forget who you are." Then, her expression softened as she turned to me. "Julian, you know Aurora likes to have fun. But I promise you, she truly loves you and would never cross the line." I knew what she was referring to. Remembering Leo's words, I had to ask, "Auntie, is the company having financial difficulties?" Mrs. Su smiled. "There are always difficulties. But I believe that as long as you two work together, there's no obstacle you can't overcome." On the way home, Aurora, giddy from the alcohol, started talking about Leo Meng. "You know," she said, holding up one finger, "his father gave him this much money and told him to just live it up and not worry about proving himself." I remembered Leo's arrogant face and said nothing. "Aren't you going to ask how much?" she prodded. "I'm not interested." "Mr. Lin, why are you so uninterested in money? A gentleman loves wealth, but he obtains it through proper means, not by taking advantage of others." My hint was obvious, but she was too drunk to care. "I think taking advantage is fine," she retorted. "A business that doesn't take advantage of someone is a business for dogs. We're a perfect match, one greedy for money, the other for beauty. Are you going to tell me you haven't taken advantage of me?" I was speechless. Annoyed, I cranked up the rap music in the car. As the aggressive beats filled the space, Aurora started dancing in her seat. "Mr. Lin," she shouted over the music, "Leo Meng has 100 million. Just spending it on having fun is boring. I'm going to make him prove himself." The neon lights outside flashed across her face, sharpening her features into something that grated on my exhausted nerves. At a red light, I stopped the car, reached inside her coat, and tugged on the strap of her slip dress. Using a beauty trap? I loved Aurora. I was ready to spend my life with her. She was the fairy who had lifted me out of my darkest days, and the partner who had helped me reach the pinnacle of my career. But this was something else. When we got home, she poured 2 glasses of a celebratory wine her mother had left for us. "You just focus on growing your ginseng, Mr. Lin. The art of war is my department." She linked her arm with mine. In the traditional posture for a celebratory toast, our arms entwined like ginseng roots. The room was filled with the scent of roses and wine. As her gown brushed against my leg, a shiver ran through me. Looking into her misty eyes, I leaned in and kissed her. The night was a fever dream of rising heat and tangled limbs. Her lips were cool and crisp, a brittle sweetness like sugarcane in winter. As the moon set and dawn approached, I heard her voice, a sudden intrusion into our post-coital haze. "The company is in trouble. You need to lower the price of the ginseng." I was tired. "Aurora, I'm already giving you the lowest possible price, and I don't think this is the time to talk business." "Understood," she said, her tone shifting seamlessly. "Let's talk about something else. Your mother called me today. She asked when we've set the date for the wedding." "Oh, and what did you say?" I told her it's set. I said nothing more, but I could hear the distinct, sharp click of high heels on the concrete path in the garden below. There was no wind, yet the closed curtains in the room seemed to sway, conjuring images in my mind of those urgent footsteps that I felt were inextricably linked to her. I woke from a restless dream, my throat parched. The pillow next to me was empty. Aurora was gone. I hadn't been home in a while, staying at the hospital with my mother, and I couldn't find a single bottle of water in the kitchen. Too impatient to wait for the kettle, I poured myself a glass of the sweet wine left over from the night before. Moments later, a scorching heat radiated from my back to my heart. My legs felt weak, my vision blurred. My mind was flooded with the sensual images from the night before, my rational thought consumed by a single, obsessive need. Aurora. I stumbled through the apartment, following the thick scent of roses. A light was on in the study. Aurora was there, wearing the same dress I had taken off her just hours before, staring at her computer while on the phone. In the pre-dawn silence, I could hear her mother's voice on the other end, sharp and angry. I've spoiled you, that's the problem. You made reckless investments behind my back and lost everything. Now you're going to drag the whole company down with you. I've sold the jewelry your father left me. What more do you want from me? Mom, I know sorry is useless, but Leo Ming has money. I can turn this around. Don't you dare mention his name to me. A trust fund kid living off his father's allowance. What good is he? The entire company is riding on this face cream. You need to lock down Julian Lin and focus on this project. That's what matters. I know the cream is our lifeline, but it takes 6 years to grow one ginseng root. How many jars do I have to sell to save the company? Aurora, I'm telling you for the last time. The cream, the company, you, and I, we all sink or swim together. I know. I shook my head, trying to clear it. I felt my own pulse. A strange heat was pounding against my veins, yet my heart felt cold as ice. The clash of hot and cold was a dangerous, damaging sign. With the last shred of my sanity, I turned and fled the apartment. When I came to, my former medical school classmate and current assistant, Clara, was talking to my doctor. The patient was exhausted and then consumed an excessive amount of a potent tonic, causing the body to react and leading to a temporary syncope. There's no major damage, but while deer's blood has its benefits, it must be used in moderation. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I sat up abruptly. Doctor, what did you say I consumed in excess? Deer's blood. We pumped your stomach and analyzed the contents. My body was still weak from the ordeal, and a hot pressure built behind my eyes. I finally understood the source of my unnatural, scorching thirst.